Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on our news.
A war of words erupts in the House of Assembly. That story straight ahead.
How PLP leadership contender Alfred Sears says he feels heading into the party's national convention. The Commissioner of Police cracks down on alleged repeat offenders after 2 overnight murders.
What Dr. Daniel Johnson had to say about comments made by Prime Minister Perry Christie Sunday night. That story is coming up straight ahead.
The leader of the Free National Movement calls for the release of the Boundaries Commission report. Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina McNeil. Topping news tonight, Fort Charlotte Member of Parliament Dr. Rollins and Golden Gates MP Shane Gibson this morning headed out on the floor of the House of Assembly over Hurricane Matthew relief and recovery spending. Our Jasmine Brown was at the House and has the details of that fiery exchange. Jasmine?
That's right, Christina. The back and forth between Gibson and Rollins erupted after Rollins asked Gibson to give a total figure on how much the government has spent on hurricane repair and relief. The drama unfolded after Gibson, who was the National Hurricane Relief Coordinator, gave a detailed communication on recovery efforts over the last 3 months. Gibson outlined the millions of dollars spent on supplies, imported goods, and repair contracts. However, that was not enough for Rollins, who asked that Gibson state the total amount of money spent so far.
We came to this House and a resolution was brought and passed unanimously for the borrowing of $150 million. I think the Bahamian people are entitled to know how much of that $150 million has to date been spent and what is the lion's share of the money, what in fact has it been spent on.
Gibson fired back by insinuating that Rollins must not have been paying attention during his communication.
Mr. Speaker, I feel now like I was sleeping. Because I thought I went through that and I said how much money how many contracts were issued, how much money is spent on cleanup. I thought we went through all that already. I didn't give him a cumulative figure, but if you get the communication, you could just add it up. 1 + 1 is 2. So, everything is there.
But the drama did not end there, as Rollins insisted the Bahamian people deserve answers. Gibson responded by saying as a veteran politician, he doesn't need to be lectured by a rookie.
The Bahamians elected me too. I keep hearing these people talk about who they represent. People who ain't nobody ever voted for them before, right? But I ran in Golden Gate 3 times. So I represent people too. They elect me, that's why I'm here. They don't, I don't want to side out these people who ain't never been on the ballot before, because say they represent 100,000 people. Then people who win one election, I represent people too, Mr. Speaker.
Gibson ended the argument by telling Rollins that while the $150 million was approved, the government has not drawn down on that figure, as officials are only using the funds as they see fit.
And can you say in total how much of the $150 million you've spent, sir? And what is left to be spent? That's all I've asked for. Don't tell me how long you've been elected to this House, but how much have you spent?
Now, while Gibson refused to answer Rollins, he says he will not hesitate to answer the Bahamian people. Reporting from the House of Assembly for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown. Back to you, Christina.
Thanks, Jasmine. Well, as the Progressive Liberal Party prepares for its first convention in more than 7 years, leadership contender Alfred Sears said today the party is still appointing stalwart councillors, placing him at a disadvantage. He warned that voters will be watching to see how the party behaves during its own election of party officers. Vonique Toot reports.
Despite calling for a fair election at next week's Progressive Liberal Party convention, leadership contender Alfred Sears suggested today that stalwart councillors are still being appointed on the eve of the 3-day convention. His comments come days after a former PLP MP asserted that Sears will not receive a fair shot, and the party's leader has the ability to appoint a number of stalwart councillors.
The unfortunate thing is that from this experience, it is clear that we need reform. There are no guidelines, there are no regulations for the conduct of elections, and therefore right on the eve of the election we have the appointment of new stalwart councillors, and therefore it is not really until the day of nomination, I'm informed, that a comprehensive list will be provided two candidates.
However, after visiting 10 family islands in recent months, Sears says he is inspired by his interactions with delegates and stalwart councilors who have encouraged him to press on with plans to challenge party leader Perry Christie. Sears says how the PLP behaves during the leadership race will send a strong message to voters.
This is a very significant exercise, not only for this organization, but for the country, because it is a public organization that offers itself to govern the Bahamas. So how it behaves, how it manages its affairs is of interest, very keen interest to all of the citizens of our country, and I'm very happy to be part of this process.
Asserting that he is the PLP's best hope at securing another election victory, Sears dismissed Christie's suggestion that he is preparing for the next general election and not so much a leadership battle. He says low voter registration numbers prove that Bahamians are disillusioned and tired of the same old, same old.
There's no question that the angst that we see and the very low voter registration is reflecting some degree of disillusionment amongst segments of the electorate. The same old, waiting for an anchor project, waiting for a foreign investor to come in and change our fortunes, cannot sustain the Bahamas. We need to shift the paradigm.
Sears sent a communication to Party Chairman Bradley Roberts earlier this month proposing a set of guidelines. Party trustee responsible for elections Valentine Grimes has said there is nothing in the party's constitution or regulations that governs elections, but there will be rules in place prior to the convention to ensure the election of party officers is fair. Reporting for our News, I'm Vonique Tude.
In other news, with 11 murders recorded since the start of 2017, the Commissioner of Police is cracking down on prolific offenders, warning that anyone who associates with murder suspects becomes a target. During a press conference at police headquarters today, Police Commissioner Ellison Greenslade revealed that crime statistics so far for 2017 are down in all categories except for murder, and that is in part due to repeat offenders.
There are no phantoms in this country committing crime. There are no serious offenders standing on street corners in the shadows waiting to pounce on innocent, unsuspecting Bahamians, residents or tourists. No truth to that. The people that are killing each other are people that are leading a life of crime. They're not employed, they're not looking for work, and they're not prepared to lead normal lives as we do as properly socialized individuals in the Bahamas.
In fact, Greenslade says police have found that a number of murders are the result of emotional reactions to relationship issues.
The feuds are over drugs, feuds over women. We're even seeing feuds over men, where people set it up. That's real. We at one point did not want to believe that these relationship issues were the cause of a lot of the anger, the bitterness, which sometimes lead to serious injury and to death.
This as the commissioner issued wanted posters for some of the country's most prolific offenders wanted for questioning in connection to murder. Police want to question 27-year-old Alfred Bastian of Kemp Road, 29-year-old Amal Hunter, also known as Bow of Williams Lane, 46-year-old Mario DeVoe, who also goes by Mario Fox, 25-year-old Mark McKenzie of Blue Hills Heights, 33-year-old Patrick Goffey of Washington Street, 27-year-old Sean Brown, aka Fire of Rupert Dean Lane, 25-year-old Christopher Joseph, aka Debo of Edward Street, and 34-year-old Anton Wright, aka Banton of Ivanhoe Road and East Street South. Greenslade had this message for friends and family members of the wanted men.
Please turn them in. They are residing in New Providence. We know exactly as a community where they are. Please help us to prevent another murder. The sooner we turn these people in, the sooner you tell law enforcement where they are, the sooner we solve these outstanding matters.
Well, the Commissioner of Police today telling reporters that the person responsible for an early morning murder at Williams Lane off Kemp Road should be the first to turn themselves into police.
Seeing us will save your life and the lives of many other good people. So do your family members and friends and yourself, do right by them. Come and see us and let us move to properly adjudicate these matters and stop this foolishness, this hemorrhage that has occurred.
Police were called to the scene of a shooting at Williams Lane off Kemp Road after 4 a.m. There, police met the lifeless body of a man with multiple gunshot wounds. Greenslade could not confirm whether or not the victim was shot in the commission of a crime, but he confirmed that evidence suggested the victim was not on his own property when he was killed.
There were other things that we took note of to suggest that had we not intervened as quickly as we did, the complexion of what occurred this morning would have been quite different. And you could easily have had, I'm going to use the term to a Bahamian public that is alert. You could have easily have had innocent people, and several as victims.
Greenslade noted that the crime this morning was one that many have not seen before in the Bahamas. Police have identified the victim as 16-year-old Ricardo Leonard Fox of Marathon Estates. Well, this morning's killing comes hours after one man was killed and 3 others were wounded during a shooting incident on 2nd Street, Coconut Grove. Police officials are calling it a bad start to the new year. Chief Superintendent Clayton Fernander says the shooting occurred around 7:30 last night when a group of men were standing on the street and a dark-colored vehicle pulled up.
2 men exited that vehicle and fired a number of shots. As a result, 4 adult males were shot. 1 died on scene. The 3 other victims were taken to hospital in private vehicles. They are presently being attended to by doctor at this time. We can't say the nature at this time.
The identity of the victim has not yet been released, and officers on the scene were unable to confirm whether or not the victim was known to police. Investigators are working to determine the motive for the shooting and continue to appeal to residents in the area for any information to assist them in their investigation.
Let's hold hand. Let's see if we could bring some calm to the streets. It's so sad that we are losing our young men on both sides of the coins, as the deceased and also as the suspects involved in the matter. So it's so sad that we are losing all of the young.
This, as Fernandez says, the country needs to address the root of crime.
You find that criminals are growing up the young kids on the street because the parents are not present to bring them together. So we have to try to come together as a community, as a country, to try to come together to guide these young individuals and to try to bring some calm to the country.
Anyone with information on this or any other murder is asked to contact police at 911, 919, or Crime Stoppers at 328-TIPS. Still to come on our news, a progressive Liberal Party minister touts party unity after the Prime Minister's controversial comments. Why the Bahamas saw an increase in Cuban migration last year, and a push for the release of the Boundaries Commission report sooner rather than later. That's coming up when our news returns.